Hello, I'm Dr. Jeanette Raymond, psychologist, psychotherapist, relationship expert, and author of Now You Want Me, Now You Don't. Today I'm going to continue my series on the capacity to love. And this is part 2, and it's about the issue of a basic trust between a couple. It's one of the major problems that couples face when they get to a point where they can't do any more by themselves. Things reach a crisis point and they come to therapy. So I'm going to give you an example of a couple that I worked with where neither of them believed each other when they were acting in a nice, accepting way. So they both had difficulty believing that the other one had good intentions. So imagine being in a relationship where you're constantly suspicious and on guard that your partner is going to judge you, is going to find you wanting, guilty of something, inadequate in some way, and that you always have to be on, performing, perfect, the ideal model of a spouse, whatever it might be. And imagine how much stress that causes, and think about how that's going to affect the relationship. It's going to mess up the communication because you're always on the defense, believing that your partner's on the offense. And the capacity to trust someone, believing that they have good intentions, is the second most important component of real love. You have to let yourself be vulnerable so that your partner can see the messy side, the dirty side, the smelly side, the imperfect side, the slobby side, the side that doesn't care from time to time, the mean side, the cruel. We all have that. We also have beautiful sides and generous sides and empathic sides and sympathetic sides and cruel and mean and vicious sides. They all exist together. But in a true loving relationship, the capacity to love someone despite their shortcomings, in other words, because of their humanity, is what real love is about. Otherwise, it becomes conditional, and it becomes about one person having an ideal partner in their mind who is not human, who's some kind of god of perfection, which can never happen. So they're bound to be let down. They're bound to feel betrayed, cheated on, lied to, etc., because they're imagining this kind of inhuman being. So what does this capacity to trust and be vulnerable entail? What does it look like? Well, first of all, as I mentioned, it looks like each spouse feeling free to be whoever they are. So if they're angry in one moment, they can express their anger. They don't have to be vicious about it, but they can express it, and the other partner doesn't think that they've suddenly turned into a monster and they mustn't love them anymore and they've got to withdraw. They can accept that that's the place where their partner is. It will peak and it will ebb, and things will get back to a more kind of peaceful place. It's also about accepting the fact that your partner may not enjoy being with you from time to time. Maybe they're excited about being with a friend they haven't seen with a while. That doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means they're being human and they have another need. So again, the capacity to love involves being who you are, making your own choices, feeling your own feelings without the fear that your partner is going to experience you as bad, inadequate, unloving, uncaring, insensitive, cruel, mean, and unsupportive. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means you're human. And if you can allow yourself to be vulnerable, you show your partner your dirty linen, so to speak, that you're not always on, you're not always perfect, you don't get everything right all the time. That means that you can trust your partner to love you no matter what, whether you're on a cloud nine doing everything correctly, or you're down in the pits feeling angry and messy and having a temper tantrum and not wanting to be around anyone. Then your partner will just say, okay, well, that's where you are right now, and I'm still be here when you're ready to come out and talk. So it's that kind of love is what's called the basic trust. And it involves empathy. It means that when you see your partner in a bad place or going through a bad time or having some stress and not being able to cope with it, that you recognize those feelings in yourself, and you know that it's not going to last forever. You know, because you've done it, that in that moment, it doesn't mean you hate your partner, that you want to punish them or be mean to them or do anything to them. It doesn't mean you've stopped caring about them or that they've become invisible. It just means you're going through something and you'll get over it. That at that moment, the door kind of shuts a little bit because you have to deal with stuff that's inside you. And then when you can open the door and let your partner back in, and everything will kind of find its right balance again. So empathy is one of the main ingredients of this basic trust, and so is vulnerability. You've got to feel relaxed and safe and comfortable enough that your partner will still care about you, no matter what you've done wrong or what mistake you've made or what you've said inadvertently, or maybe you've done something hurtful and so on. But basically the belief is, the basic trust is that your intentions are good, not coming from a destructive place. Okay, so why do so many couples come to therapy without having this capacity for love, this basic trust, the second most important component? It's because when they were growing up, they didn't have an experience of it themselves. Their caregivers, in particularly their mothers or whoever they spent most of their time with, whoever they got the emotional connection with, their caregiver did not make them feel loved no matter what. They didn't say, oh, you're just having a temper tantrum, that's fine, mommy still loves you, come sit on my lap. They didn't say, oh, I see, you got really angry with me because I wouldn't let you have another piece of cake, so now you're going to throw everything around. I don't want you to do that, I don't like you to do that, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. I still love you, and let's talk about it. Let's see what's going on for you. Let's try and understand your anger. Let's give you some alternatives, kind of talking it through and processing it, but still making the child feel loved. So a lot of the clients that I see who have this problem, when they become adults and they have romantic attachments and become a member of a couple, they've never experienced it. So they think that their spouse is going to be as inadequate as their parent, and they're not going to be able to trust them. And same with the other spouse. So then you have two members of a couple who both do not trust that their partner has good intentions and is coming from a good place, will still accept them, will still want them, will still love them, will still be affectionate and caring and supportive despite their shortcomings, failings, mistakes, and ways of expressing their feelings. And what happens in therapy is they get a redoing of those early years. I work with each one on their own and together to develop that capacity to love, that capacity to trust and empathize, because they know from experience with me, I'm going to give them what their parent didn't, that people who love you do have good intentions. They are not out to get you. They're not trying to destroy you. They're not trying to make you feel shitty in order that they can feel good. It may have been their family of origin experience, but it doesn't mean that their spouse is doing it. And that takes a while. And as I work in parallel with each couple, individually. I bring them together from time to time so they can actually check it out for themselves and see that it's not what they thought it was. And the important feature of this is in the therapy, as I work with them, I help them avoid the paranoia that happens when you don't trust. Because when you don't trust, you feel alone, you feel scared, you feel that you have to protect yourself, and everybody out there is about to get you, wants to get you, destroy you, and that's called paranoia. So I work with couples to prevent that from happening so they can build the internal basic trust inside them, because I'm showing them how to do it and I'm giving it to them, and then they can give it towards each other. So that's number 2, capacity to love, basic trust, vulnerability, empathy, and learning how to build it. I'd love to hear from you, your comments, your experiences, and any questions you have, and I'll be talking to you soon in the capacity to love number 3.